Hello, everyone, and welcome to Civic Platform. This is your host, Zuher Almusre. Manitoba Start in Winnipeg organized one of the important workshops, and it's titled with Interview Skills. So many of newcomers and new immigrants to Winnipeg, they struggle with the job interview. So how to prepare ourselves for this interview? What kind of question the interviewer will ask us? So all these questions you will find their answers from this new episode from Civic Platform. So let's jump right in. Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me. I would like you to introduce yourself. Who are you and what are you doing?
Sure. I'm Chris Brown. I'm one of the job developers, labor market specialists at Manitoba Start. I've been around for about 5 years, and I take great pleasure in doing this course every Friday.
Thank you very much. Before we move to the presentation, I have some really popular questions about the presentation topic.
Sure.
And the first one is about what we can do with like when we have a non-reasonable question from the interviewers. For example, some of the question, where you do, what did you, where did you see yourself like after 5 or 10 years? So some people they said like I don't know what I will have for lunch tomorrow. So this kind of questions, how we can reflect and answer it.
Sure. So this is a very common question that gets asked in interviews. And I think what you want to do is always come back to the job description that you've got in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you want to look at that job description and you want to find 2 or 3 things on there that you would hope you would also be doing in 5 or 7 or 10 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
So if, for instance, you love working with clients, so you might want to say, well, in 5 years, I hope I'm still working with clients because I quite enjoy that. And these other 2 things, B and C on this list, I also really enjoy. So I'm hoping that in 5 years, I would still be doing some of that. And then I might say something like this. Well, as I progress through my career, I would hope that my employer saw the benefit in what I do and would come to me with a promotion and suggest that maybe I might be a good person to fill that new role. So I'm hoping that I do my job well enough that you, as the employer, will come to me and say, Chris, we want you to take on a new role here.
Mm-hmm. So there is some very famous mistakes. It's very bit challenging when we go to interview. We are very nervous, and sometimes we feel like we forget what we have to said and what we should said. And there is some popular mistakes. Can you tell me like some of examples to and advise the viewers to avoid this kind of mistakes during the interview?
Sure. Well, the first thing you want to do is this isn't a test like you had in university.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can bring in a little booklet with you where
Mm-hmm.
you write down on every page your skill set. So I was a marketer before I joined Manitoba Start. So in my book, I have written digital advertising. And so
Mm-hmm.
under digital advertising, I will talk about the projects that I have. Outdoor advertising, magazine, radio, television, et cetera, et cetera. Every one of those will be an individual page. So I think that one of the mistakes that constantly people make is not bringing in enough written resources to assist them in answering a question to the very best of their ability. If you
Mm-hmm.
ask me right now, Chris, what's the best success you've had in your whole life in business? I'm going to be like, let me think. Okay, it's this one. And then I'll tell you something, but that may not be the best one.
I
I may
see.
get out of the interview and halfway home and go, oh, I wish I'd told him this story. This is way better story, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So make sure that you write those down and carry that little book with you. Now, you can't hold that book up and read the answers. You can't do that. But
Mhm.
you can have bullet points that are things that remind you to make sure that you talk about so that you don't leave something essential out of your answer. So I
Mhm.
think that's one of the big things that people do that's a mistake, is not to spend enough time before the interview writing stuff down. I think another mistake is they don't anticipate that people are going to want to know about their successes. So you want to make sure that you write down as many successful stories as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Another common mistake is to be late. Late is dead. If you're 5 minutes late, just turn around and go home.
Oh my God.
Okay? You need to be 15 minutes early. My mother used to say to me, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. And I honestly believe that. You need to be 15 minutes early to every single interview. Now, please don't be a half an hour early. That's just weird. Okay. But 15 minutes for sure. Even if you have to go to a coffee shop around the corner and wait and then come exactly 15 minutes early, that's better than arriving a half hour early. And that's certainly better than arriving 5 minutes late. They
Mhm.
won't wait. They have 300 people that they want to talk to for this position, and they will just tell you to go home.
Um, Another question, how I know during the interview, these people, they don't like me, or they have like a 50% about they will hire me, and I want to take them back to the right track. So now I am in the middle, and I feel they are not interesting. They you can feel it from their body language, from yeah, some reflect, but I want to make them like rethinking about me and take them to the right track again.
Okay, so the only reason that they're thinking poorly about you is because you're not delivering.
Yeah.
You're not delivering the answer they're looking for.
Hmm.
So this is not on them. This is on you. You
I see.
didn't do enough at the beginning, enough research, enough analysis, enough practice. You got to do that elevator pitch 30 times before
Mhm.
you get to the interview. So no, I don't have any sympathy. If you're out there flailing away in an interview, there's not much you can do at that point. You're done.
Oh my
You
God.
need to do all of that work beforehand.
For sure. So some of people before they go to the interview, when they listen to this kind of workshop, they say, "Okay, I will do a coffee, or I will mop the floors." Why I have to prepare myself for this huge interview like this? So if it's the very simple job, why I have to be prepared for very complex questions? So is this strategy it works for all work, or it's depend about the positions?
It works for all work.
Mhm.
Um, the more entry level the job, the more people are applying.
Mhm.
So again, instead of competing with 50 people for the job, you're competing with 2,000 people for the job. So you have to be prepared. You have to be more prepared for a junior job than a senior job almost, because you're going to want to break through and be the best person that they interview that day. And that's hard when you're competing with 3,000 people.
Mhm.
So any slip up in your interview technique probably means that somebody else gets the job who's done a better job of preparing.
Mhm. So some of the sales people they say, maybe you heard about that, like fake it until you make it. Some people go to the interview and they said just like a stories. It's not really happened. They just say like some we are heroes. We did this and this and all this not true. How that will be dangerous for their future in this career if, for example, they get that job, if
Yeah,
they give like a false information.
that's suicidal. That is the worst thing you can possibly do. Never lie to an employer. They're going to figure out what, you're going to have to give references, and those references may not agree with this wild story that you've told, um, they are going to figure out that you are not who you say you are, and you can be fired for that,
Mhm.
for misrepresenting yourself at an interview. Bad idea, horrible idea.
Mhm.
Rather that you tell a slightly, a completely true story than a slightly false story.
I see. So you mentioned that when you say in the last part, like, don't expect the call when you ask them what the next step. Maybe sometimes it will take from them like a 2 month to respond to me. So if I had a feeling that this interview it was very good and I they really want me and I'm expecting their call, but it takes like a 2 month. So, do you advise someone in this situation to still looking for a job? And for example, if he get like a new job, and for some people they want to hire immediately, and the other one, and which one I like it more, they give me that offer. How I can like leave that employer a new one to that one? So it's
Sure.
little bit hard, right?
Um, yes and no. I mean, we are all free people in Manitoba, Canada. We can work for whoever we choose. What I would want to do for the employer that I'm working for currently is not leave them in a bad situation. So I wouldn't quit that day. That would be horrible. Say to them, I'll give you 2 weeks, and I will work for you for 2 weeks. I'll work hard. I'll be diligent. I'll arrive on time. I'll do all the stuff I'm supposed to do for 2 weeks, but I'm giving my 2 weeks notice because I got a better offer. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you're great and your present company really likes you, they might come back and say, so tell us about this offer. Can we match it? Can we beat it? Can we somehow retain your services? Because we really like you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Now, about the stopping looking for work, never stop looking for work. You want, even if you had a great interview on Thursday and you've got another interview Monday, go. You don't. This is what we in Canada sometimes call, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Yeah.
So the one that you are holding, the one that's going to make the offer to you is great, but you need to keep looking until you actually have that bird in your hand, right? Until you
Yeah.
get that offer.
I see. So keep looking. Don't stop and until you find something like a good fit for you.
Correct.
It's my final question. For example, I like to work with Manitoba Start, but this they have a limit offers and they like me, but they give it for someone maybe more experienced, and he's like more he get the chance.
Yep.
Is it appropriate to said like, guys, I want to volunteer with you for like a month, maybe something will be open, I want to be in this environment? Is that something appropriate to do it after the job interview, or that not recommended?
I wouldn't do it at the job interview. I don't think that's the place to do it. But
Hmm.
if you are not given the position that you're looking for, going back to them and saying, do you have any volunteer positions? Because I'd really be interested. Yours is an organization I feel very strongly about. I'd like to work for you one day. I'd like to learn the processes, and I'd like to volunteer. Let me give you an example of this. The Manitoba Museum,
Hmm.
they do this. They only hire from their volunteer ranks if they can.
Wow.
So if you'd like to work full time at the museum as a tour guide or a education person or something, um, the only way that you're going to get an offer like that is if you've already volunteered with them.
I see.
So I think that that's an excellent opportunity. Um, volunteerism is how uh, people gain knowledge outside of um, their education, right?
Hmm.
Um, I did this. I volunteered on a few boards in town. I'm very interested in music, so I volunteered on a couple of music boards, and I did that for a number of years because it's a passion of mine. I love it.
Hmm.
And I learned so much. I learned about accounting. I learned about HR. I learned about all these things that a marketing person doesn't normally get to see.
Thank you, Chris. That's very good answer for my question. So let's move on to the presentation.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. Here we go. Welcome. This is the seminar for the outstanding interviews. Today, we're going to be talking about interviews that you take with employers that help you gain employment. So the most important thing that you need to remember is that although job interviews come in a variety of forms, there's one fundamental goal that always remains the same. You need to convince that interviewer that you are the person that they should hire for that job. It is a competition. And because it's a competition, you need to win in order to get that job. So we're going to talk about all those kinds of things that you would do to win. We're going to take a little time and break out into groups and talk about what to do before, during, and after an interview. So what we do before an interview is that we would do the research on the company that we are interviewing with. We'd want to we'd want to go on their website. We'd want to look at all of the data and information that's there. We want to talk to maybe some internal people. So we might use LinkedIn to find out who is in the company and see if those people would be interested in discussing their company with us. We might want to look at trade journals, interviews that they've had. We might want to Google that company to see what comes up. But we want to do all of the research that gives us as much information about this company as we possibly can find. We also want to Google their location, because if it's not a virtual interview, you need to figure out how long it's going to take you to get from your home to the interview location. You're going to want to look at Street View in Google so that you recognize the building and perhaps even the door that you need to enter, so that you're not confused when you arrive. You want to get there at least 15 minutes before the interview, because especially in winter, we have boots and coats that we need to take off. We bring our shoes in a separate bag. We would put those on. Maybe we'd like to visit the washroom so that we can check our hair and makeup and get organized for the interview. When you arrive, you want to be nice to everyone. You want to hold the elevator door for that person that's struggling to get in, because you never know, that person might be the person that you are going to interview with. You want to make sure that you're talking to the receptionist and smiling, and you want to make a great first impression at the organization. So if there is any doubt about whether they should choose you or another candidate who is close to you in terms of skills and talent, maybe the secretary that you were nice to pushes the interviewer into a position where they decide that you are the one they want. You're always looking to make a great first impression. So now it's time for the interview, and the person that's going to interview comes out and they want to shake hands. So in Canada, this is a very big deal. We shake hands a lot with our clients. And so we want to make sure that we provide a firm handshake. In Canada, a firm handshake means that you have confidence, that you are a confident person. It may be silly. It really means nothing, does it? But a firm handshake in Canada is something that we look forward to. So you want to make sure that you give a firm handshake. Smile. The smile is the thing that makes us human. It breaks down the barriers between us and a robot. So you don't want to be robotic. You want to be viewed as a person. If they ask you, would you like a cup of water, a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, say yes. This gives you an opportunity to walk with the interviewer to the kitchen, prepare your own beverage, and walk back. These minutes are critical because it gives you a chance to look around the office, for instance, and it gives you a chance to break the ice with the interviewer and again become a human as opposed to a number. This is important. We want people to like us and we want them to hire us. And so much of an interview is about being liked and being viewed as a good person. And what are we going to do after the interview? We're going to probably shake hands one more time. Canadians love to shake hands, so don't be surprised if you shake hands a couple of times. We're also going to want to put all of our outdoor wear on and leave the building. We want to go to the nearest coffee shop, perhaps, especially if we're going to get picked up by another person. Don't wait in the lobby. That makes employers nervous. Why is this client not leaving? Why are they still here? Take your stuff, go to a coffee shop, buy yourself your favorite beverage, sit down at a table, and write out every single question that you were asked, or as many of them as you can remember anyway. Then write out the answers that you gave and be honest with yourself. Did you give the very best answer you could? If not, then when you get home, you're going to want to Google better answers to the questions that you've been asked. Or maybe you want to consult with your career coach and talk to them here at Manitoba Start, and they might be able to help you with that. So what do employers want? Well, they want to learn more about you. They want to determine the relevance of your past experience, because what you did in the past is a great indication of what you will do in the future. So make sure that you tell stories that are positive from your past, so that those stories may be related as being the kinds of positive things that would happen if they hired you. You want to assess your communication skills. So they want to know that you can talk well, that you can form your ideas, and that you can present well. They want to see if you are a fit. Well, what is a fit? A fit is that you're a good person, that they think that you will mesh nicely with the rest of the staff, that you are a key cog in the team that they are building. So these are all what we mean when we say fit within the team. They want to judge your suitability for the position. Perhaps they're going to test your knowledge or skills. This might be in the first interview, but it might actually be a second interview, a technical interview, where you're going to be tested on your skill set. They want to determine how motivated and committed you are to the position that you've applied for. This is why we always carry the job description into the interview with us, because we want to be reminded of what position we are applying for. We don't want to get off on a different track and start talking about a position we would like, but is not the position that we are applying for. Always remember, talk to the position that you are being interviewed for. Don't talk about the future. So as a candidate, you too have needs. So you're going to want to highlight your relevant skills. You're going to talk about your qualifications and your accomplishments. We forget that part of an interview is talking about our accomplishments, talking about what we do well, what we're good at, the awards we've won, the excellent work that we've done, the people that we've affected, the numbers that we've increased. So this is where you want to say, I increased sales by 22%. I decreased expenses by 14.5%. I developed our clientele and improved numbers. I've attracted and retained staff. Whatever your job is in the company, you want to bring the numbers that justify that statement as much as you can. So we want to minimize or address any potential negatives that might come up. We want to demonstrate strong communication skills. Whoops, I'm sorry. We want to highlight and research about the position or the employer. We want to show them that we've spent time thinking about the job that we're about to apply for, and that we've researched the company itself. And we want to ensure the position is a good fit for us too, because it takes a good fit for us to be happy in a new job. And we want to share what our career goals might be. So in order to research the position and the employer, we are going to want to look at the corporate goals, mission, and vision, which you'll probably find on their website. You want to look at their customer base and their core business. What is it that they do, and how does the job that you're applying for affect their core business? What work activities, tasks, and working conditions look like? So we're going to go to the company's website, of course. We're going to talk maybe to current and former employees. We're going to look up trade journals, magazines, newspaper stories. We're going to look at internet searches. So we're going to search the company and see what comes up about them. We're going to look at the job descriptions and perhaps even the annual report. So the types of interviews that you might see are these. So the screening interview is usually a brief, probably a telephone call. And what they're doing is they're checking that you have the relevant skills, experience, and education to be invited to a formal full interview. These are usually done on the telephone. So if you're on the bus and you're get a phone call from an employer and it's too noisy to talk, for instance, you want to say to the screening person, could I get your number and could I call you back? I'm currently on the bus. It's very noisy. I doubt that you can hear me, and I certainly can't hear you very well. Give me your number and I'll call you back in 10 or 15 minutes when I get off the bus. Then you're going to want to go to a quiet place. You're going to want to go to a place with great cell phone reception, and you're going to want to call that employer back. Make sure that you get all of the details. Where are you meeting? When are you meeting? What time of day? What location? What's the address? What's a phone number that I can call in case I'm delayed? These are all important things to get from the recruiter on that phone call. The other types of interviews when you actually get there might be a one-on-one interview. So that means one person from the employer and one candidate, you. These I find are the most difficult interviews because you never know what direction that interviewer is going to take with the questions. They might start it here and then follow up, and they might end up in a completely different space than where they started. This is why I think these are the toughest kinds of interviews. They might ask you to, in a second interview or maybe a third interview, they might ask you to meet the team. So you might be in an interview with people who are going to be your coworkers. And this is so that they get buy-in from the team that the person that they're hiring is the correct person to work within that team. You might be a panel interview. Everyone's really nervous about a panel interview, and I don't blame you. You walk into a room and there's 5 people sitting at a table. That can be very intimidating. However, I find these interviews to be the simplest interviews. And they're simple because the questions have already been split up between the 5 interviewers. So they each know what question they're going to ask next. So rarely is there a follow-up, and rarely do the questions sort of veer off to the left or to the right. The questions are pretty standard, and you can give your standard answers. So I like this kind of panel interview the best. It seems to be the simplest. It might be a group interview, and a group interview is a group of candidates, a group of people who are interviewing for the same job. This happens a lot in sales, for instance, where they look at the group of people that they're interviewing and they hope that someone rises to the top of that group, and they're going to hire that person. It might be an informal coffee or lunch meeting. Always remember that the informal meeting is still a formal interview. You don't want to let down your guard, and you want to make sure that you're answering their questions fully and completely. And finally, there's the telephone or virtual interview, like we are doing now over Skype, Zoom, Teams, where the interviewer is not in the same room as you. These are difficult because we are a tiny little image on a screen. So you need to break through the glass. You want to be very personable. You want to let your personality shine through so that they can see what a good person they are looking to hire. So in virtual interviews, employers and applicants connect through technology. They might be on Skype or Zoom or MS Teams. And virtual interviews are used for both pre-screening and for selection purposes. So in a virtual interview, you want to avoid clutter. You want to use an appropriate background, something plain and non-distracting. And you want to preview your space before you actually join the interview to ensure that everything looks good. Lighting is the key thing. So if you look at my face, you can see that I'm well lit. I have a window behind me that is letting light through, and I have two side lights that are illuminating me. And I look reasonably well lit. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have lighting coming from only one side. So this side of your face is lit and this side of your face is dark. And of course, you don't want to light from above or below. If you light me from above, I'm liable to blind you with my bald head. So we want to try to avoid that. In the interview itself, you want to look to dress for success. What does that mean? So if you're a woman, you want to make sure that your makeup is done in a business-like manner. You want to keep the jewelry to a minimum. A pair of earrings, maybe a brooch or a necklace would be fine, but don't stack things. Don't wear too much. It's distracting. For a gentleman, it's always appropriate to be in a buttoned-up shirt and a tie. Whether you use that with a sweater or whether you use that with a jacket over the top, that's up to you. But again, you want to make sure your hair's combed, your beard's combed, that you look great. You want to limit body movements. So I have a tendency to talk with my hands and they fly around the screen. And so what I do is I take one hand, put it on my desk, and put the other hand over the top to hold it down. I do still talk with my hands, but I try to limit it. There's also head motion, right? This is yes, this is no. And if in your culture you kind of have a head bobble, sometimes that can be very confusing for a Canadian interviewer. So keep that bobble out and add an affirmative yes nod, and that will, I think, do you a lot. That's far better. And smile. My goodness, I can't emphasize that enough, especially in these small screens. If you're smiling, you're breaking through that glass. You're moving from becoming a number or a robot to becoming a person. And this is incredibly important. You need to break through that glass. So show your personality a little bit. Make sure that your camera is at eye level. So you notice with me, my camera's pretty much at my eye level. So you're not seeing me like this, where all you can see is the top of my head, or like this, where you can't see my head at all. You're seeing me. I'm in the dead center of the screen. I have my elbows on my desk and I'm leaning into the camera. Okay? This makes me look like I'm interested in what the interviewer is saying. I'm not doing this. I'm not leaning back and crossing my arms and saying, stop, this wouldn't be a good image to present. So get up close to your computer, lean in and look interested. That's an incredibly important part of an interview. So We want to share our accomplishment stories. This is what everybody forgets in an interview, that you want to be able to talk about the positive things that you've done, the things that you're great at. Write them down. Buy yourself a little book that you can carry into an interview and write down 6 or 7 or 8 positive stories about yourself. You should be able to tell them quickly, less than a minute. They should all have a beginning, a middle, and an end, just like a storybook. Okay? So don't dive into the middle of a story, or don't approach a story from the end point and then try to work backwards. Tell it like you would tell it to your children at bedtime. Start, middle, end. Okay, use as many relevant examples and numbers as you possibly can. Telling someone that you increased sales by 36% is more impressive than saying I'm a good salesperson. So use numbers if you can. And focus your response on the question asked. I'm terrible at this. You ask me a question and I'm over here and I'm over there and I'm telling you all kinds of different things. No, you want to be condensed and you want to answer the question. And I find what's good for me is at the end of a very complex question, I say to the interviewer, did I answer every section of that question for you? And is there anything else you would like me to add? And that gives them an opportunity to say, well, Chris, you missed this thing, or Chris, you got way off in the weeds over on the left, and I need you to come back and answer this question. Okay? So the most important question, the very, very most important question you're going to be asked is the simplest. Tell me about yourself. This question is a killer. If you do one and only one question today, this is the one. So here's what I need you to tell me during this question. First, your name. Next, your profession. Next, your skill set. Then your experience. Then your education. Not first. Put your education third. Why? Because everybody else that's interviewing is going to have roughly the same education as you. So don't lead with that. It's uninteresting. Okay? We want to hold that back to closer to the end. But the most important thing, and the one that you're going to have the hardest time with, is why are you the best person for the job that I'm going to talk to today? Now, many of us have not spent a lot of time thinking about why we are the best at what we do. But I'll tell you, if you ask your coworkers, if you ask your friends, if you ask your parents, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your spouse, your kids even, they can tell you what about you makes you special. So interview them, find out what they think about you. This may help you to answer this question, but you must answer this question. Because as you'll see as we go through this question comes up time and time and time again. And they rephrase it and they restate it in different ways, but they're always asking you, why should I hire you? And you must be able to answer that question. Okay, so elevator statements, they want to talk about the skills and qualifications that you possess that relate to what? That relate to the job description in front of you. Okay? This piece of paper that you brought with you that says, this is the job I'm applying for, these things you need to highlight, the keywords in that job description, so that you understand what it is you want to say here. So you want to make sure, whoops, I'm sorry, my computer's getting away on me here. You want to make sure that you showcase the qualifications and the positions that you're applying for. Don't talk about next year's promotion. Don't talk about the future. Talk about right here, what is on that sheet of paper, okay? Why does this position interest you? So you want to be able to pick something out of that job description that truly does interest you, that makes you want to work for that company, and you want to place an emphasis on that. Well, I love this company because it does ABC. It does ABC way better than its competitors. And I especially like A. A is incredible. This is something I want to work on, right? And why are you a good fit? Here it is again. Tell me why you're the best candidate. Why are you the best fit for this organization? Okay, the types of interview questions. So here we're going to want to say there's some general questions, and this is just basic questions, learning more about you. There's some competency-based or behavioral questions. These predict your past experiences into the future. So what did you do before? Because I'm going to assume that if that's what you did before, that's what you will do again when I hire you. So make sure that these are positive, right? You want to tell positive stories about your behavior because they will assume that those positive stories will carry into the future. Situational. They want to examine hypothetical questions. Oh, sorry, let me go back to the competency for a minute. They usually start with, tell me about a time when. And you'll see that in a minute when I show you some of those questions. So tell me about a time when you did this. Tell me about a time when you did that. Situational, when we're examining those hypothetical questions, those are questions like, if you were in this situation, how would you react? Okay, that would be a hypothetical situation. Then there's stress questions. These questions are meant to put you under stress during the interview to see how you react. Do you get flustered? Do you get mad? Are you unable to answer? Does the stress overwhelm you? And then the unusual questions. And these are the truly weird questions. And we'll talk about a couple of those at the end too. Okay. So here are some sample general questions. Why do you think your skills, education, and experience make you a good candidate for this position? I told you we'd see this question time and time and time again and repeated over and over and over. So you have to figure this out. And I can't help you with that. I am not you. I haven't had your experience. You need to figure out why you're the best person for this job. Why should we hire you? Same question, repeated a different way. What are your strengths and weaknesses? This one I love. So we all do the strengths thing. We all know what we're good at, but it's the weakness one that causes us so much trouble. And to me, there's two ways to handle this. The first is to choose a thing that we're actually good at, choose a strength, and reposition it as a weakness. Let me give you an example. I am a detail-oriented person, and I'm really intent on finishing my work every day. So I work hard at making sure that I prioritize and that I do the things necessary that will prevent me from having to stress about that in my life. So I'm taking something that employers love, which is hard work, and I'm turning that into a weakness. I don't think that that works as well anymore because everyone uses it. The one I like better is to actually take a real weakness. Now you want to choose one that's small. You don't want to choose that giant weakness, but you want to choose a small one. So let me give you an example, and this is hypothetical, but my weakness is that I can't sleep at night because I'm always thinking about work and it's going around and around in my head, and I have trouble sleeping. But what I'm doing to fix this problem, I'm turning off my electronics about an hour before I go to sleep. I'm grabbing a really engaging novel, and I'm going to read a story because I find that reading takes me out of my own head and puts me in a different world, allows me to relax, and I naturally fall asleep. Usually with a book in the middle of my chest, but I'm asleep. That's what I want to be. So, yes, choose a small problem and then tell the interviewer what you are doing to fix your small problem. Okay? Keep them small. Let's see. Tell me about your experience in this type of workplace. So again, here they're asking you to talk about your previous workplace and the kinds of things that you did. Here are some sample competency-based questions. Remember, I told you that they all started with, tell me about a time. So tell me about a time when you were proud of your performance at work. Tell me about a time when you had to make a difficult decision. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with multiple deadlines. And tell me about a time when you had conflict at work, either with a coworker or a customer. So these are competency-based questions, and they're really a story, aren't they? You're going to tell a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we're going to use a special technique, and we'll get to that in a moment, to help you tell these stories. Okay, so here are some sample situational questions. When asked to take on a new task, one that you've never done before, what would you do to make sure that you were doing it well? How would you handle a conflict with a colleague? Describe how you would prioritize tasks or needs on the job. And how would you handle an angry customer who interrupted your conversation? So these are hypothetical questions. They have not occurred in real life, but they're asking you, what would you do if, okay, something happened? We answer the last two with this particular technique. It's called the STAR Stories practice. S-T-A-R. S stands for the situation, right? Tell me the start of the story. What is it about? T is the task. What did you, not your team, not your group, not the company, what did you specifically do? What were you assigned? What is your role within this situation? Then here's where you spend the bulk of your time. A, action. What actions did I take? So if this story is 3 minutes long, I want you to spend 2 of those minutes telling me about the action that you took. That's the important part. That's the part that the employer is interested in. And then the final piece is the result or the response. So you want to say, you know, we increased sales by 14%. That was the result. Okay? So the interview is progressing. We're coming to the end now. And the interviewer says, do you have any questions for us? Well, yes, you should have perhaps as many as 5 questions ready, because during the course of the interview, they may answer 3, leaving you only 2 questions left to answer. One of them might be on this list here. What qualities are you looking for in an ideal candidate? What would a typical day or week look like for this job? Why is this position vacant? What kinds of projects can I expect to work on? But the one I want you to add to this list is, what is the next step? This is the most important question to ask, because you don't know what's going on in the company. They may say to you, oh, well, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be interviewing. So you realize you're not getting the job in 3 days. It's going to be 2 weeks at minimum before they call you. Then they might say, and then we want you to come in and do a technical. So there's another week. And then they might say, well, you got to come in and meet the team. So there's another week. And then you got to come in and have lunch with your boss. There's another week. And then you got to come in and have a meeting with the president of the company. There's another week. And oh yeah, you have to meet the dog. There's another week. You know, maybe there's 6 or 7 weeks before you know that you're going to actually get this job. So you don't want to be sitting by the phone Monday morning after your Friday interview and waiting for that call that's not going to come for 7 weeks. So this is why we ask this. What is the next step question? Another good question might be, did I provide you with all the information that you require? So if there's something else that you can add to the mix, maybe it's a portfolio, maybe it's an endorsement from a customer or from a previous employer. These are all good times now to add that. The kind of questions you don't want to ask at this point are as important as the ones you do. So we don't want to say, so what is the salary? And we don't want to say, so when is my first raise? And we don't want to say, so can I bring my children to work? Right? These are all inappropriate questions. Leave those for when you finally do get an offer from the company. Okay. And finally, in the interview, as we get to the end of it, we're going to want to say thank you. Thank the people in the room who spent time with you. Then, once you exit, remember we were going to go to our coffee shop, pull out of your briefcase some thank you notes, some paper thank you notes with envelopes and stamps and that whole thing. And write out, thank you for your time today. I really appreciated meeting all of you. I really am looking forward to doing this job. I think I'm perfectly capable of it. And again, thank you very much for your time. Put that in an envelope and send it to them. Why do we do a paper? Why don't we just send an email? Well, I suppose you could, but how long does an email take to compose and send? And how long does a card take? You have to go to Walmart, you have to buy a thank you card, you have to bring it home, you have to fill it out, you have to put it in an envelope, you have to lick it, you have to put a stamp on it, you got to walk to the post office, you got to mail it. That shows commitment to the company. Commitment that you really do want this job. So I think this old-fashioned idea of sending a paper card as a thank you note is a really, really good one. And personally, I think it's better than an email. To me, email equals work. A thank you card is a true expression of thanks. So I would suggest that. If you've no other choice, do send an email. Do say thank you. But if you have a choice, send a card. I think it's a much better idea. Of course, you want to check the spelling. You want to keep it error-free. You want to make sure that you got the person's name spelt right, all those kinds of things. But yeah, a card is a great idea. That brings us to the end of our presentation for today. Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate the fact that we're talking to you. I hope that your viewers on your YouTube channel are really going to enjoy this presentation. I hope it helps them to find work. That's the whole point of this, isn't it? And I would encourage them to come to Manitoba Start and take the full course, because we only did the presentation part of this today. There's a whole question and answer session that takes another 2 hours after this, and allows the candidates to really get involved with us as presenters. So I encourage you to do that. Thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it.
We reached the end of our episode. Thank you for watching. I believe after this episode you have a good idea about what kind of questions the interviewer will ask you if you have a job interview, and how you will pass this very serious moment smoothly and successfully. So if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe, and wait for new episode from Civic platform.